Good morning, everyone. Good morning, brothers and sisters, inviting guests, candidates, everyone, good morning. We're going to start off by saying a pledge of allegiance, which will be led by our own Union Secretary, Brother Adam Wood.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Secretary Wood. Good morning, brothers and sisters, invited guests, candidates, everyone. Welcome to Local 798's Union Hall, and a very important day for us. I want to start out by thanking each one of the candidates for being here, along with our esteemed moderator and journalist, Mr. Phil Mateer. Thank you for joining us here. And to all of our candidates, our Mayor London Breed, Supervisor Aaron Peskin, Supervisor Asha Safai, Daniel Lurie, and former Supervisor and former Mayor Mark Farrell. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate this. This is a great day for 798, and I cannot tell you how proud I am to see so many members, uniformed members of Local 798 here present. You all are the lifeblood of this union. You give us the job to lead you. You give us the job to represent you. But truthfully, what happens in and around the Union Hall, what happens with this union is because of you, the members that stand up here. You, the members that put on the uniform every day and go out and represent us, represent the city well. And as the president of this local, I am very proud to see so many involved and attending union faces. So I want to give you all a round of applause. Thank you. And just really quick, I'm going to make this short, but I also want to say a special thank you to my executive board, because yes, I am elected president, but my job is made easy because of the dedicated work that the executive board of Local 798. So I want to recognize all of them and all of the hard work that they continue to do in driving forward and making this union better and stronger. Thank you all. Then I know he's somewhere in the room, I don't see him, but I also want to give a special thank you to Jimmy Blackman and his team for all of the work that they did putting this together. Thank you, Jimmy. And let me just also recognize District Supervisor Shaman Walton. Thank you for being here. And now, without further ado, it's time to get down to business. This is an important day for 798. This is an important day for the labor movement as a whole. Happy to see a lot of our brothers and sisters here from labor as well. And also our partners in the POA. So thank you all for being here. I would like to introduce esteemed journalist and our moderator for today. I called him and we talked about this a few times, and it's an honor to have him here to guide this event. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Phil Mateer. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Quite a turnout we have here. Okay, so quick. What do police and firefighters have in common? What's the one thing? Thank you. You know the one. Now, why does everybody want to be a firefighter? Because if you're a cop and there's an encounter, you're guaranteed that one person at least is going to be pissed off when you leave. When you're a firefighter, everybody's happy. Or at least that's the idea. Now, with that carries a weight, because the firefighter's endorsement is one of the critical endorsements locally, state-wide. It just is. You know the brochures, you know the TV ads. If they can't get the firefighter's endorsement, they dress somebody up as a firefighter and put them out there on the TV ad. So in the next couple of days after this debate, you'll be deciding who you want to vote for the union to endorse. And I know you have a lot of questions about benefits and about parity, other things. And they're going to be asked, because he's made sure that they're loaded in there. And that you have some people out there that are going to make sure they deliver that question onto you. But you're also, remember that you're going to be influencing the city. That your image and your vote and your endorsement carries weight. So I want to ask you to put a little part of whatever you're thinking into your neighbors, into your friends, into what's good for everybody. So remember that your responsibility is pretty big. You guys are. That's just the nature of it. So what we're going to have is questions. We're going to rotate them around. One of the reasons we're going to rotate them around is because, well, to be honest, years ago, Willie Brown, when he was running for mayor, always managed to be at the far end whenever there was a debate. Because the fact of the matter is, for all of his bluff, he didn't know jack about half the stuff that was going on. But he figured, and he smartly did, that if the questions started like with Dan Lurie and worked his way down, by the time it got to him, he'd have a pretty good understanding of what he should do. But we're not going to let that happen. We're going to rotate it around here. And what the ground rules are, what? They're sort of standard for these debates. 60-second opening, 90-second opening statement, 60-second closing remarks, 1 minute response for general questions. That's always great. You know, how are you going to solve something in 1 minute? You know, it's like, you know, solving Muni in 100 days. And we're going to rotate the order of responses. We have a timer here that's going to hold up a yellow card at 10 seconds. A timer is going to hold up a red card. And then if you go past the red, everybody's going to collectively boo on cue. That won't look good on the TV cameras. So let's start things off with candidate opening statements. We're going to start with Mayor London Breed, and then we're going to go right, actually, to Peskin, Mr. Lurie, Mr. Savai, and Mr. Farrell. Mayor Breed.
Good morning. I am the only candidate who has always been there for the San Francisco firefighters. As a fire commissioner, I fought to hire new firefighters, fund new equipment, secure a new fire boat. As supervisor, I was the only elected official to stand up for you during the ambulance crisis of 2014. The others who are here today were silent or totally absent. I fought for you, and together we lowered response times, we hired new medics, EMTs, and firefighters, and invested millions of dollars in equipment. As mayor, during COVID, I added floating holiday hours, let you cash out your vacation, reduced the hours required for overtime to kick in, and allowed paid leave to count as hours worked for total overtime, and made overtime more predictable, and made sure firefighters were on the front line of receiving COVID vaccinations. I delivered $275 million for neighborhood fire stations, and since hiring the chief that many of you supported, we have hired more than 640 firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics, and have reduced mandatory overtime. Under my tenure as your mayor, your pay is now nearly 30% higher than the Bay Area average, and I protected every single time your 48.7-hour work week. I look forward to continuing our work over the next 4 years when I'm reelected. The fire department has been like a family to me, and like most families, we have our fights. But when we are under attack, I have your back, and I hope that you have mine. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Peskin.
Good morning to the working men and women of Local 798. Phil, the question that you should have asked, or the answer to the question that you asked about what was the same between firefighters and police, the answer used to be parity, and that is no longer true. I have been a friend of Local 798 for 25 years and have done more than all of the candidates on this stage. If you're looking for a mayor who talks the talk, you've got a lot of choices. If you're looking for a mayor who walks the walk, I'm your guy. And there is so many problems, but I am a detail guy. And for the people who have worked with me, for the leaders of Local 798, going back to John Handley, Tom O'Connor, Floyd, I have worked through those details because I have that level of experience and leadership skills to solve the day-to-day problems. I'm very proud of the work that we have done together. I'm going to speak about the work that we have done together. But there are also one incident that I am not proud of, and I want to address that. That is the incident 6 years ago at the St. Patrick's Day North Beach fire, for which I have taken accountability and responsibility and have worked to make myself, with many of your help, a better person every day. But we have worked together on taking cancer-causing chemicals out of your turnouts. I made your holiday pay pensionable years ago before many of you were even members of Local 798. I look forward to your endorsement. I look forward to working together on pension reform with you, for you.
Mr. Lord.
I love this city, like all of you. I was born and raised here. My wife, Becca, and I were raising two young kids here. We have a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. It's clear to all of us that we need change. Turning our city around demands accountable leadership and new ideas. The City Hall insiders who got us into this mess won't get us out. And we know this not because of what you'll hear from them this morning, but because of their records. Doing things the wrong way over and over again is not experience, it's failure. It wouldn't be accepted in the fire department, and it should not be accepted at City Hall. Many of you are getting to know me. You know I have not spent my career in politics. I founded and served as the CEO of one of the most innovative poverty fighting organizations in this country. I'm the only candidate in this race that's held nonprofits accountable and made them deliver measurable results. I built housing in this city on time and under budget with good paying union labor. I've proven how accountable leadership can get big things done for our city. As your mayor, I'll bring that same culture of accountability and deliver more than empty promises to all of you. Because when we call you, you answer every single time. You all should be well paid, well trained, and healthy so you can take care of us and yourselves. I look forward to the discussion today.
Supervisor Safi.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Asha Safai. Let me start by saying I'm a proud immigrant who fled violence and came to this country when I was 6 years old. I was raised by a single mom, and I'm a proud father and husband, proud father of two and a husband. I'm running for mayor because I want to represent all San Franciscans, including working and middle-class families, those that are often forgotten. Those are the people that I've represented the past 8 years and that I've dedicated my entire career to. A lot of politicians, some on this stage, will make promises to this union and that have gone unfulfilled. They've asked for your support, and when the time comes, they turn their back on you. But I've listened to your members, I've listened to your leadership, and together we've accomplished a lot of really good things over the past 8 years. I've helped pass legislation to replace your turnout gear. I led the effort to allow paramedics to do 5150 holds. I fought to ensure that presumptive injuries were something that you wouldn't have to think about when you're on the job. And I am fighting like hell to reduce your retirement age from 58 to 55. Also, I'm not going to nickel and dime your firehouses and then ask you to go put yourself in harm's way. This election is critical to the future of our city. We have the resources, but we lack the leadership, accountability, and management. As mayor, I'll fight for a city that works for all San Franciscans. Thank you. Go ahead.
Former Mayor Farrell.
Thank you. First of all, let me start off today by saying to all the men and women in our fire department, current and retired, to those police officers here as well, thank you for putting your lives on the line for us every single day as San Franciscans. It is not said enough out of City Hall. I want to make sure that you know that I respect your work every single day on behalf of our residents. I'm a proud born and raised San Franciscan. I'm proud to have worked inside of City Hall for 7.5 years as a supervisor and as mayor. And I'm proud of my history working with our fire department in 798. When I was budget chair, I worked with the fire department and your chief and your administration and didn't cut a single dime that was not agreed upon together from your budget. I started the first down payment assistance program for first responders inside of City Hall. And I've met many people, many firefighters over the course of the last few months that take advantage of that program, even Mario yesterday, to live and plant roots here in San Francisco. I also have a proud track record of working with 798 on small issues. Station 16 with Floyd before he became the head of 798, when we were working to rebuild Station 16 and they were putting in bad sleeping pods for the firefighters. We worked to address that and making sure we had conditions that work for you. To big issues like cancer, working with Tony Stefani and the Cancer Prevention Foundation to make sure, when we found out the study, that I authored legislation to make sure that firefighting chemicals, fire retardant chemicals in furniture and children's toys would no longer be sold in San Francisco. We worked together on those issues. My commitment to you is to continue to fight for you every single day inside of City Hall. Thank you.
Okay, now some questions. And if they don't loosen up a little bit, I'm gonna make them all close their notebooks. Okay, one of the biggest problems or challenges or whatever facing San Francisco is homelessness. Now, we are a city that aspires. We have lofty goals for the city of St. Francis, and this has been going on for 30, 40 years. We also have realities. And we've spent between the public sector, all of you, and the private sector through charitable donations and work, put hundreds of millions of dollars into the programs, housing, beds, this, and the debate goes on and on. So the question I have, and I think everybody here has, is one, is it possible to even solve the homeless problem, or is that something that's going to be with us and that we have to manage? And second of all, is there a limit on how much we should or can do without jeopardizing the city? Start with Supervisor Pesca.
Thank you, Phil, and you're all on the front lines. You know the frequent flyers. You're the ones who deal with people who cannot help themselves. And as I said before, I am the detail person. We have conservatorship, but we have not made it work. As mayor, as somebody who has leadership skills, who has the experience, who has been able to bring different departments together, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, I am the person who can get things done and solve those problems. And anybody who tells you on this stage that they're going to solve it in 6 months is BS.
Well, that was short. Okay.
Tipping Point funds about 17 organizations fighting housing and homelessness issues and fighting poverty in those two areas between Oakland and San Francisco, 17. The city and county of San Francisco funds 248 organizations working on housing and homelessness without any metrics put into place on most of those contracts. Those 248 nonprofits can contract out with all 6 or 8 different departments, and those 6 or 8 different departments don't know who's contracting with them, to the tune of over $1 billion a year. There's no accountability. There's a lot of people now on this stage saying, I'm going to audit all the nonprofits on day one. But why haven't they done that? They've been in office for nearly a decade or more. 70 years of combined experience on this stage besides myself. And we are not holding groups accountable. I promise you that.
Supervisor Safai.
Thank you. Let me just be clear. 18 months ago, the voters of San Francisco, on an initiative that I led, passed mandatory audits for our Department of Homeless Support Housing. We have a department that started out at $100 million that's grown to $700 million. The first audit that was conducted last spring, a year and a half ago, they had to call in the FBI because the group was selling vouchers to friends and family. The next audit that was done, the group was submitting invoices for work that's not even being done. So we have started audits. That is beginning, but audits take time. But what we really have is a lack of leadership. We have the resources. We just approved a contract for a hotel the other day for a shelter. And if you go on the street of that, in front of that shelter, you would be appalled. Some of you respond to calls there almost on a daily basis. It's called the Cova Hotel. So we have to make sure we're managing our resources. We have to expand shelter. And just like Supervisor Peskin said, anyone that tells you they can get it done in 6 months is lying. We have to build the shelter beds. We have to do it in an aggressive amount of time. And yes, we can end street homelessness in San Francisco. Sorry, 60 seconds is not enough on that question.
Mayor Farrell?
Thank you very much. So look, we're not going to solve homelessness, but we're going to make a major dent in the issue. And this is where a track record really matters to the firefighters that are serving us every single day. When I was mayor, we had large tenant cameras that were growing throughout the city of San Francisco, behind Best Buy, close to Trader Joe's on Masonic, and different hotspots around the city. And in 6 months as mayor, I did take out all the large tenant cameras. I didn't solve the underlying issue, but I made the conditions of our streets safer. I believe in treating people with compassion and respect, but I also believe the sidewalks of our city belong to everybody. They belong to families, they belong to the elderly, not people who are choosing to live in tents on the streets of our city as long as they want. That is not the future of San Francisco that I will fight for. I will fight to clean up our streets. I will fight to get people off the streets and into shelter and housing. And I will fight to make sure they're off the streets so that you are not spending the majority of your time as firefighters dealing with tenant cameras, and you can work on fighting fires, which is what you were there to do. Thank you.
Since I've been mayor, we have helped over 15,000 people exit homelessness. We have increased our shelter capacity by over 60% more than any other mayor. We have increased our permanent supportive housing more than 50% more than any other mayor. And the problem is not going to be solved by building permanent supportive housing or shelter alone. We have to start cutting off the opportunities that exist in San Francisco. And it hasn't been easy. In fact, thank goodness for the change in the Supreme Court decision effective August. We are going to be very aggressive and assertive in moving encampments, which may even include criminal penalties. This is not a popular decision, just like Proposition F that I put on the ballot that requires people who have substance use disorder to be in treatment if they want money from the city. We have had to move from a compassionate city to a city of accountability, and I have been leading the efforts to ensure that we are addressing this issue differently than we have before, because just building shelter and housing and those kinds of opportunities are not going to be the things that help to solve this problem long term.
I got a follow-up question for everyone. The mayor brought up the possibility, if I'm correct, of criminal consequences, people on the street. That's starting with you, Brown. Yes or no to that?
We need to stand up 2,000 units of shelter.
No,
that when
on
people-
this one part.
So the answer
Criminal
is,
consequences, yes or
you
no?
do not criminalize unless you have some place to offer people shelter.
Mr. Lurie?
I have a plan to stand up 1,500 shelter beds in the first 6 months. We need more shelter. We need to double down on homeward bound. We need more mental health and drug treatment beds. And if those 4 are not taken, then yes, we need to put criminal consequences in place.
Okay, Supervisor Safai?
If people are stealing and doing drugs and breaking the law, that's one thing. I passed legislation to make sure Homeward Bound would come back. That program, 2/3 of the people that take advantage of that program never come back to San Francisco. This has been buried in the bureaucracy by this mayor. We have to bring it back, expand it. It's one of the most successful
Wait,
programs.
was that a yes or no on the criminalization?
If drugs and stealing are done, yes.
No, I said it on
Yes.
On the sidewalk.
If drugs,
living on the sidewalk, without the drugs, just living on the sidewalk.
you have to have the shelter beds.
Is that a no?
It's a maybe.
Okay.
I'm being honest, like, it's not a yes or no answer, Phil. I mean, you can say that to everybody, but I'm not gonna lie here today. So,
Yes, it has to be on the menu. And let me be very clear. The Grants Pass decision came down 3 weeks ago from the US Supreme Court, and tenant cameras are growing this week in the city of San Francisco. Presumably, this mayor and every single person in San Francisco knew this decision was coming down, yet we were not ready as a city. As mayor, I will be aggressive. We will work to get tenant cameras off the street every single day that I am in office to make sure that your lives as firefighters every single day, once again, is focused on fighting fires, not dealing with tenant cameras.
Okay, you mentioned the mayor. Under the rules, she has the right of rebuttal.
So first of all, 10 encampments, when Mark Farrell was temporary mayor, were 58% higher. And second of all, the only thing that we've done in terms of the issue, the homeward bound that was mentioned earlier, that we haven't been implementing homeward bound, we didn't implement homeward bound during COVID. And since COVID, we have been implementing homeward bound. Our goal, like for example, by the DMV, there were 5 people who had over 100 touches within a 3-month time period, and they refused services. So yes, citations, penalties that are progressive, that hold people accountable, and that includes criminal penalties as well as prosecution, because we can't continue to allow these things to happen. We now have the ability to enforce the law. Sit, lying, and sleeping and tent encampments are against the law, and we have the ability to enforce it without offering shelter, because many of the people on the streets, they've been offered shelter, and a lot of them have refused. About 60% of the people that get offered say no, and that is out the window now.
One of the most visual representations of the problem is the fentanyl. And we see it in the Tenderloin. We don't see it in other neighborhoods, but it's prevalent across the board. Somebody ODs in the bathroom of their house out in the Sunset, that's not going to have CNN here. But if they are on the downs and at Market and Powell, they are. So firefighters are in the front line of that. They're having to deal with this. That wouldn't have been done on the books 20 years ago, but now it is. It's a very common occurrence. What kind of support and what are you going to do to try to stop the fentanyl crisis from proceeding? We will start with Supervisor Safai.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry. We start with former Mayor Farrell. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Go right ahead.
Been very public. The day I come into office, we'll declare a fentanyl state of emergency. Will allow us to get additional law enforcement resources into the Tenderloin South of Market to fight the crisis that it is, and also build a 24/7 centralized intake center so we can bring people off the streets and connect them with services. But the reality is our current administration's approach to the fentanyl crisis is failing. Record number of people ODing on our streets every single year. Harm reduction only does not work with fentanyl. Why is the city of San Francisco paying nonprofit workers every single day to go through the Tenderloin with shopping carts, handing out free packets of tinfoil and straws? I've watched people pack that up. I've watched people walk across the street, smoke the fentanyl and pass out on the street corner. This is not working. We have to have a completely different approach. My North Star is saving lives. Let's get people off the streets. Let's get people into shelter. And whether it's voluntarily or involuntarily, through every legal means possible, let's work to get them off the streets, into shelter, connect them with services, save their lives. Let's avoid them dotting our streets of San Francisco from a reputational perspective and what you do every single day as firefighters in our city.
Supervisor Safai.
Now to
Are you sure? I just want to make sure. Don't want to cut anybody. Okay, so I said clearly on the campaign trail and as an elected official, there is no higher priority for me as mayor than stopping the overdose crisis. 810 people died last year from overdose, thousands more overdosed and were resuscitated, many by people in this room. We have to address this crisis head on. So we got to arrest the drug dealers, a no holds barred. We got to get in there and stop them from selling this deadly drugs. But at the same time, we got to make sure that we expand sober living in our city. And I did one of the first one of those last few years. We got to expand that. We got to partner with places like the Salvation Army so we can give people a path to true recovery. But I still go back to homeward bound. Because if you're not from this city and we can reconnect you with a loved one, we got to expand it and make sure that it's working. And then lastly, I would say this. As mayor, I would put a satellite office. I would move my office into the Tenderloin at the police station. I would be on the ground where it's happening on a daily basis with you to make sure the resources are there. And then at the last thing I would say is we have to expand more shelter. We got to utilize St. Mary's and St. Francis because they were just bought by UCSF. and expand the number of recovery beds. That's true leadership for our city. We have the resources. We can do it together.
Thank you. Mr. Murray?
I am also calling for a fentanyl state of emergency on day one of my administration. We're going to surge resources to this problem. We are going to get tough on first-time drug dealers. Law enforcement says my plan puts those drug dealers out of business. And then we really need to expand our options for those people that are suffering on our streets. I no longer want our firefighters and our police officers being our homeless outreach workers and our mental health counselors. I want trained clinicians going out and pulling people in to a 24/7 crisis center, making sure that we get people to those mental health and drug treatment beds. We're spending $700 million a year on our behavioral health crisis. We have skewed so far towards just harm reduction, which has got to be part of the continuum of care, but we need to mandate treatment. We need to fulfill the promise of treatment on demand. Right now, if someone wants help, they meet that moment in their addiction, they're turned away 50% of the time. That's unacceptable.
To the members of Local 798, you will recall that I am the first elected official who called for standing up a coordinated drug markets coordination function in city government. I held an unprecedented meeting of the Board of Supervisors with the mayor in United Nations Plaza to call attention to this. It took many months before a drug market coordination center was stood up. But I will say this, which is this city must aggressively prosecute drug dealers. And we must work regionally to use Prop 1 money to repurpose underutilized and unused state facilities that were abandoned years ago. We should work as a region. This is not a San Francisco only problem, but we should send those folks to a regional facility with the doctors at the table. And one thing that I say as somebody who does the detailed work and brings people together is that no one in our chief executive's office has brought together the doctors, law enforcement, and the other first responders. I am capable of doing that.
So we have done something that has been unprecedented. I have made the hard decisions to not only arrest those who are dealing drugs on the streets, but those who are using drugs in order to get them treatment. We have called in and have worked collaboratively with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the California Highway Patrol, the National Guard, and our local law enforcement agencies, including the police department and the sheriff's deputies, as well as our other services program. We have made over 3,000 arrests. 858 of those folks have had outstanding warrants, even in other jurisdictions. And more importantly, just yesterday, our district attorney announced a 92% conviction rate for felony drug dealers in this city. We are working together and we are combating this problem, which many of us know is a national problem. And we are finally starting to see progress. Are we where we need to be? No. But we are committed to continuing to be aggressive. We have plenty of services. We provide plenty of opportunities for people to get help and to get treatment, but we cannot be a place where anything goes. And on top of that, Proposition F, which I put on the ballot, which the Board of Supervisors wouldn't even calendar because we could have handled it in-house, passed by voters overwhelmingly. So if you are not in treatment and you suffer from addiction, you cannot get money from the city.
Okay. We're going to start with Supervisor Safai. Let me boil this down to the short question. The short question is, look, businesses are leaving the city, they say, for a number of reasons: lack of parking, lack of traffic, lack of foot traffic. But one of the big ones is they feel like it's just not safe. Now, it has gotten safer. I think we can agree on that because it looks like sometimes we have the National Guard on Union Square. But the question is, can we sustain that? And can we spread it to other parts of the city? Supervisor.
Thank you, Phil, for that question. You know, I passed legislation at the beginning of the year with support of the entire Board of Supervisors collectively to institute foot patrols citywide. We need to get back to getting cops out of the cars and back out on the footbeat. And you're right, It's been effective in Union Square. It's had a tremendous impact in stopping retail theft. 3 years ago, I put together an organized retail theft working group with the chief, the DA, the sheriff, the NAACP, United Food and Commercial Workers Union, and we made this a top priority for our city. The fruit is beginning to bear now, but we need to have foot and bike patrols and true community policing all over San Francisco. We can't just have it in the downtown. I'm sitting in my headquarters yesterday and someone walked out of Skechers with 5 boxes of sneakers. It happens on a daily basis. The illegal street fencing on the streets. We got to crack down on that. We have to be present in the neighborhoods. And if we do it in a proactive way, we're going to make sure that it's sustainable. And yes, crime will continue to drop.
People are not coming back downtown. Businesses are not coming back downtown. Our friends that live in the East Bay, the North Bay, the South Bay are not coming shopping because they don't feel safe. We need to make sure we address public safety downtown. We need officers walking the beat. We need to create the conditions. We need to create certainty in our permitting to allow small business and big business to come back down and know what they're getting into. The inefficient, corrupt bureaucracy is caused people to flee. They don't want to deal with City Hall. So we need to streamline the permitting on that. And then we need to transform how we think about downtown. It's got to be a 24/7 neighborhood. We've seen it happen in New York City. I was there after 9/11. No one wanted to go back downtown. And we need to get people back. It's been done before. We are a boom and bust town. There's no question. And I want businesses to want to be headquartered in San Francisco. They need to feel safe coming back downtown. We need a fully staffed police department, a fully staffed sheriff's department, and a fully staffed 911 dispatch office.
Let me first thank the officers from Central Station, a station that I've had a close working relationship with for 25 years. And let's be clear, which is we have hundreds of fully funded vacancies in the San Francisco Police Department, and we need to fill those vacancies. And that is precisely why, as president of the Board of Supervisors, I voted for and championed a package to increase wages, to increase retention benefits, and why I'm voting for and have co-sponsored a deferred retirement option program that the Board of Supervisors will be voting on next Tuesday, despite a little kerfluffle at the Board of Supervisors. I believe in community policing, and 25 years ago, when I first became a supervisor, I reached out to Central Station, learned the names of all of those officers, which is why today I enjoy the endorsement of almost every captain that I've had the honor of working with at Central Station, and dozens of retired Central Station police officers.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, basically, how do you keep the whole city safe? We've spent a ton of money, you know, we brought in the National Guard, the CHP and everything. It's worked in Union Square, but how do we get it all the way around and sustain? So it's not in and out, in and out.
Yeah, so let's start with the facts first. In 2023, we saw one of the lowest crime rates we've seen in 10 years, not including the pandemic. And even year to date, 34% decline, thanks to all the incredible work that we have been doing with law enforcement, including providing alternatives. People have been talking about the officers for decades, but we created an ambassador program of retired police officers, which are not just in Union Square, but they're in neighborhoods throughout San Francisco. And we've gotten a retail theft rate. San Francisco saw the biggest drop in retail theft of any major city in the country. We have been working on bait car operations and other things. And look, we are seeing the numbers change considerably, and people are starting to see and feel a bit of a difference. But until people actually really feel it, we know we still have work to do. And we expect, based on my plan, to have a fully staffed police department. But the solution is not just police. It's accountability. It's making sure we're making the right investments, and we're attracting and retaining businesses, including places like IKEA and Sal U-Haul, which I work to bring to the mid-market area, as well as another number of other retail establishments, and turning downtown, as I said last year in my economic recovery plan, to a 24/7 neighborhood where people work, where they live, where they play.
Yes, we can be safe across the city of San Francisco, But it's only going to come if we have a change of leadership inside of City Hall. And let's be clear, crime statistics are down in downtown because no one's down there. No one's visiting San Francisco. 7% of the population has left our city, and people don't report crimes anymore. Statistics are meaningless in that situation. What we need is a mayor who prioritizes public safety, plain and simple, unapologetically so. Look, we have some of the best men and women in our city government working as police officers. Some of the most amazing human beings and people, but we don't have enough of them. When City Hall strips $120 million out of the police department budget 3 years ago, that is not a commitment to public safety. And since I left office as mayor, we're down close to 600 officers. Essentially, 25% of our police department has been eviscerated since I left office in 2018. That's not a commitment to public safety. And you know what? It's not just for our police officers, it's for our firefighters. Because you're now doing wellness checks, unarmed, in manners that you have never done before. You are having to do street interventions in ways you've never done before.
Time up.
Thank you very much. We will stop that.
I got a quick follow-up, since we're on this topic of public safety, and question on November ballot. This would be a yes, no, starting with Mr. Lurie and down. On the November ballot, there is a proposition to redo Prop 47. Been a series of big debates at Sacramento about it, statewide issue. Yes or no on it?
We need to reform Prop 47.
Yes.
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 All right, now we'll go back to, okay, workforce housing. What are you gonna do to keep people staying in San Francisco? The last person was Asha, right? Okay, start with you.
We have an affordability crisis. 80% of you all or more are not able to live in San Francisco, don't live in San Francisco. Same goes with our police officers, our teachers, our nurses, and that's unacceptable. You all take care of us during our darkest moments. You come when called, and we should be providing for you. We should be providing more options around housing, around childcare subsidies. We should be trying to incent you all to be here, as many as possible. I understand you built lives elsewhere. I understand that. But we need as many of you here as possible. But here's why I'm confident that we can do this, because I've done it. I'm the only one standing here that has built housing in this city on time, under budget, with good and union labor. It takes longer to build housing here than anywhere else in the state, and that's unacceptable, and that's because of the broken bureaucratic system that they all built, and then they blame it for their failures. I'm going to build more housing, and I'm going to make sure to get as many of you living here as possible.
Hogwash. There are over 70,000 units of approved housing in the pipeline, and they're not being built because interest rates are too high. But our crisis is a crisis of being able to house working people in this city. We've built 150% of our market rate luxury housing numbers, and the real issue is how we provide financing that will unlock that pipeline, that will be affordable to people that make 80 to 120% of area median income, read firefighters, nurses, 911 dispatchers. And I actually figured that out. And I actually led and passed legislation this very week for the city to provide tax exempt revenue bonds for workforce housing, which was voted on unanimously by the Board of Supervisors, not paid for by taxpayers, paid for by the rents or sales prices of those units with much cheaper interest rates that will build housing for our working people in San Francisco. That's the kind of detailed work that I do and the kind of product that I deliver.
Mayor?
All roads lead to housing. San Francisco, back in the day, you could afford to live here to a certain extent. And in fact, so many people raised their families here. And now the city is not affordable because of many obstructionists and people who constantly oppose housing. And affordable housing is great. If you're lucky enough to qualify and hit the lottery to get one of those very hard to get units, We have to build housing, not just on the eastern side of the city, but on the western side of the city. We have to make sure that we are being very aggressive about our housing production rules, especially once interest rates hopefully go down so that we can get things done. We have to provide creative financing tools like I have done with the Potrero Power Station, with Treasure Island, $265 million of infrastructure resources so that those projects are not stalled. If we don't get serious with housing production, then it's not even going to matter. It's been like this for far too long. I have constantly pushed for reforms around housing production in this city, and everything is a fight. That's how we're able to get things done. And my hope is now that this housing conversation is serious amongst people who are running for office, that we are finally able to do so.
Yes, we have an affordable housing problem throughout the city of San Francisco. In
Hey,
particular,
baby.
men and women in our unions that build the housing in San Francisco should be able to live in the housing in San Francisco. But let's talk about first responders. We are safer as a city when I live next to police officers, firefighters, and sheriffs. We need to do everything we can to allow first responders to plant roots in our city. That's why I created the first down payment assistance program for first responders when I was in office. Dozens of people and families have taken advantage of that. And we will grow that when I am mayor next year. But also in terms of the vacant units, some people want to tax homeowners for vacant units. I want to give them a tax incentive to actually rent out to police officers, firefighters, and sheriffs, and teachers, and nurses, and 911 dispatchers here in San Francisco. Let's do everything in our power to make sure first responders are living in our midst here in San Francisco, and you have my commitment as mayor to be unapologetic about every single policy to make that happen.
Supervisor?
Thank you. Look at my track record. In 7.5 years in the district, in the city, the Excelsior Outer Mission, no housing was built. 7.5 years later, 600 units of housing have been built, 65% of it affordable. 2 of those projects were private developments, and I negotiated with every one of them to ensure working families would be able to live there. Those are the families that I represent. Teachers, nurses, firefighters. There's a lot of conversation about that, but those are the people that put me into office, working with organized labor for almost a decade. So I'll tell you, we also just introduced a legislation to use your pension fund money, any pension fund around the country, to invest it in lowering the tax rate, because that's the problem in our city right now. The taxes and the fees are too high. So if we lower that tax rate using pension fund dollars, we can unlock some of those 70,000 units sitting in the pipeline. And lastly, I'll tell you this, a loan forgiveness program to help you first responders to be able to live and thrive and save some of that money to put it toward buying a home, and down payment assistance is a wonderful way to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Lurie, Supervisor Peskin said that your ideas on housing were hogwash.
But
Get a minute.
Financing is important. I have planned to work on that issue, but simply put, the state just had to come in and take over our planning process, driving the time from 2 years to 6 months. But at the Department of Building Inspections, it's still going to take 600 days on average to get a building permit. That's unacceptable. And everybody on this stage has built up this bureaucracy. And you just heard the supervisor talk about taxes and lowering taxes, but he's the one that increased the taxes. So they just make excuses. I'm tired of the excuses. Let's get housing built. Let's get labor to the table. We need more housing in this city.
Okay.
Wait, do I get a response on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
He was talking about Aaron's hogwash
No,
comment.
he said lowering taxes, that was it, Madam Mayor. But respectfully, this is where an experience shows,
Oh, here we go.
because it was the voters of San Francisco that voted on Prop I to raise the transfer tax. So
Put it on the-
that's what we are reducing using your pension fund money. Thank you.
Whoa.
No, pension funds, excuse me, let me be clear, Union dollars that will be invested for you to make money, not your pension fund, no, we're not touching the pension fund.
Million dollars around the country.
Now what we're gonna do is have some of these rather vocal union members ask questions themselves, and you can bet they're loaded, like, get ready. George, address it.
Thank you everyone for coming. Hope you're having fun.
Glad they will come.
Absolutely.
We are too. My name is Sam Gebler. I've been a firefighter and paramedic with San Francisco for 10 years. Currently, I work in the Richmond district on the west side of the city. But when I started, I worked on the ambulance. And so my question to you guys, because I've seen both sides of this issue, is about your feelings on medic to follow. And medic to follow for the media and other people here is basically a fancy way of saying there are no ambulances available in San Francisco. We've all seen this hit the media every once in a while, but nearly every day, we still have medic to follow. I've been on the side of the ambulance that's screaming across town, and I've been on the side of being on the fire engine, trying to explain to a family member why we're waiting 20 minutes before we can take them to the hospital. So I have two questions for you. How long do you want to wait for an ambulance if you have a heart attack? And as mayor, what would you do to fix this situation? Thank you.
We'll start with Mayor Breed.
Well, first of all, in 2014, I was a vocal leader in helping to address the ambulance crisis, which had people waiting up to 38 minutes for an ambulance through the medic to follow. And what we have done to not only build Station 49, pay for new ambulances to make sure that they're not breaking down on the side of the roads, and put money into the budget to hire more paramedics and EMTs for the department, has decreased that amount significantly. And my goal is to make sure that I am working with the labor leadership in order to make more investments so that we can continue to improve upon medic to follow. And I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Farrell?
Okay, thank you. First of all, when you call an ambulance, you want it right away. I will say over the last few years, both my parents have fallen ill at different periods of time. Mom recently passed earlier this year. And I will tell you, the firefighters that came to our house were some of those amazing men and women during that time in terms of comfort and so forth. And making sure that they're there right away has to be the priority inside of City Hall. While I hear about investments, the bottom line is they're not enough. We are still funding over $1 billion of nonprofits and not being held accountable inside of City Hall. We need to redirect that money to our first responder departments, to our police department, to our firefighters. That will be my priority in City Hall. That's how I'm going to run the ship when I'm mayor of San Francisco, and you will have the resources that you need to make sure you are responding as soon as needs to be to make sure families like my family are feeling safe and feeling proud to call San Francisco home. Thank you.
Supervisor Safai.
Thank you. Every year I've been on the board, I've fought to make sure that we got additional money in the budget to increase the number of paramedics and EMTs. It's something that's been grossly underfunded in our city. The other thing that I did, working with your leadership, when we came into office, there's an agreement in terms of private response, ambulance response versus city funded. And that percentage had gone way down. So we made sure to work with your leadership to get that number back up to the 92% it should be. So your members are the ones responding. And my mother did fall 2 years ago, broke her shoulder. And I will tell you, the response that I got and the people that showed up at our house that took her to the emergency room was unparalleled. You all are doing it every single day. And under my administration, you'll continue to get the resources increased so that we're getting the response and you all are doing the work that you need to do out in San Francisco every single day.
I have a friend who told me a story about his mom. She called, she was in a caregiver and she was having trouble breathing. She called 911. Shortage caused them not to pick up for 30 minutes. She passed away. We have a $15.9 billion budget. This is not a crisis of resources. This is a crisis of leadership. You all have seen what these folks have done for you over the years. Your rigs, some of your rigs are older than some of your firefighters. I've talked to you about tiles falling down on your head while you're eating at your stations. You have to go to the ballot every 7 years to get what you need. That ends on day one. You all have our back. I'm going to have your back every single day as your mayor.
I think the question we need to ask is who has the most experience to figure out how to take the resources that we have and use them most efficiently. I want to tell you a little story. Last year, the executive branch of government brought a lease renewal to the Board of Supervisors for $64.60 a square foot. I'll spare you the details. I stood up at the Board of Supervisors and led the effort to reject that lease at $64.60. A month ago, we voted on the replacement lease to $29.95 a square foot, saving the city $21 million. We need systemic reform in order to save money to plow it into things like more ambulances, more paramedics, and reduce the reliance on 42 stations engine to follow. I have the ability, the experience, the know-how, and the detailed knowledge to make that happen as your mayor.
So because we're going to follow the rule that you refer to the executive branch, so we're going to allow the mayor to respond.
Yeah, and I want to just reiterate that whenever I've been asked to provide support and resources, whether it's the new training facility, the fight for Station 49, and ambulances in every single budget, and on top of that, even introducing a supplemental when we were dealing with real challenges around paramedics to get more hired, I have done that, and I've done that in my budget with not only recommendations from the chief, but recommendations from the union. And we have seen significant change in medic to follow. But I know that one call is one call too many. And I am committed to continuing to do everything we can to make those investments to get to a better place. But I also need to know about what those things are. And when I'm being told by the leadership what they are, I have in most cases delivered every single time.
All right. Next up, we're going to have a question from Union Secretary Adam Wood.
Morning, candidates. My name's Adam Wood. I just recently retired from a career spent almost entirely at Station 7 in the Mission District. Thank you for that completely spontaneous response. And I'm a resident of District 7 in Sunnyside. And my question is related to a pension reform initiative that we're proposing. In the wake of the Great Recession, a new tier was created for firefighters, which required them to work 3 years longer to qualify for their full retirement benefits. It also raised all of our employee contributions to the pension fund to help shore up that fund. In the dozen years that have passed since that was put into effect, we've learned more than we ever wanted to know about cancer in the fire service. Cancer is now the leading cause of occupational death for firefighters in the United States. And firefighting as a profession has been listed as a Group 1 carcinogen by the International Association for Research on Cancer. Our cancer rates in the San Francisco Fire Department track with those national and international trends, especially for our members over 50, where the elevated risk they face as firefighters combines with the elevated risk for cancer that all of us have as we age. So what we're trying to do is get a measure on the ballot that will take the retirement age for new firefighters, which is 58, and return it to the retirement age for firefighters of my generation, which was 55, in an effort to reduce their exposure to toxic carcinogens in this most vulnerable stage of their career. The measure would also leave in place the higher contribution rates to the pension system so that we can continue to support that system. As candidates for mayor, would you support that measure?
Supervisor Pestle.
Adam, first of all, thank you for your groundbreaking work and leadership and the foundation's work that has been, I think, leading firefighting cancer prevention in America. And thank you for coming to me with the data around PFAS and PPE that led to the groundbreaking national leading work that we did to ban PFAS over the next 2 years in your turnouts. Let me be very, very clear. The arguments that you set forth to the Board of Supervisors were profoundly convincing and compelling. And as a result, I am a co-sponsor of the charter amendment that will appear on the November ballot to reduce the retirement age from 58 to 55 and restore that provision. It is right. And actually, I believe is economically right because it will actually save San Francisco money over time.
I'm not interested in supporting this ballot initiative, but it has changed and it is still going through the Board of Supervisors process. And so I am waiting on the final version in order to make a decision on this ballot measure. And just to be clear, I have not been actively engaged in any way in this ballot measure. So I hear that there have been some rumors circulating. And ultimately, I want to just say also regarding the legislation related to PFAS. When I negotiated the MOU with the fire department, we included that in the MOU to make sure that as soon as there is an option to purchase turnout coats and other attire for the fire department that is available without PFAS, we will be first in line to purchase it.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes. And let me also say this. I am very proud of the work that I did with the Cancer Prevention Foundation when I was in office before. The legislation that came forth with Tony Stefani and that entire organization when I was in office was around fire retardant chemicals causing elevated rates of cancer in furniture and in children's toys. I authored the legislation in partnership with the Cancer Prevention Foundation, in partnership with 798 and the leadership of the fire department to ban the sale of those products in San Francisco. And now other cities, most other cities in the United States have followed suit. And so we set a national trend by doing that. And I will tell you, because it is personal to me, I have childhood friends in the fire department. You have my unequivocal support to continue to fight for cancer prevention metrics, legislation, and ballot measures inside of City Hall on behalf of all of our first responders, in particular our firefighters. And I'm unequivocally supporting this ballot measure. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Hopkins. I'm gonna, just 1 second. I'm gonna ask everyone just to hold their applause so we can get this moving. We're just running a little bit behind time. I'm going to be respectful of everyone's time. So Supervisor Safai.
Thank you. So I was the president of the retirement fund for 1 year and served on that body, working with Fred Sanchez and your longtime delegate, Joe Driscoll. So I want to be clear, my highest priority was ensuring that your money was invested so that this fund is solvent. That's all I was talking about before, was taking those monies and smartly investing them with your approval, okay? I have been the lead co-sponsor on this ballot measure with Supervisor Stephanie. I have fought every single step of the way. And to be clear, it is going on the ballot, so everyone should be able to answer whether they support it here today or not. I support it 100%. And I fought this past Monday when there was a last minute attempt to gut half of the measure in a surprise attack. That was not right. And we were on this body making sure that we honor the work that you do and that you're putting your lives on the line. And that's why, to me, this measure is so important. Learning that cancer is the #1 cause of death of firefighters was a shock to me. And I've been on this body for 7.5 years. So you have my firm commitment on that.
Thank you.
I'm all in, 100% supportive. Now, my question to you is, why do you all have to start and have a nonprofit raising funds outside to do cancer screenings? You shouldn't. And under my leadership, I'm going to make sure the city pays for annual cancer screenings for you all. It is unacceptable that you need to go outside and fundraise. Listen, I'm all for, charitable work. But you all deserve better from your city. You go out every single day. We ask everything of you. It's the least we can do. And yes, PFAS, when we have equipment, I applaud the mayor saying we'll be first in line, but we should be focused on that. We should be focused on doing whatever we can to support you all. Thank you for everything that you do for us. And I will have your back every single day.
Mayor, is there any response that your neighbors vote?
He
That
applauded
was
it,
positive.
and I agree with it.
All right. Next up, we have a question from Dustin Novo.
Good morning. My name is Dustin Novo. I have 27 years in the fire department. I work at Station 43 as captain. I live in the Portland district. And my question has to do with encampments. And this is a problem for us. Obviously, on a daily basis, we're fighting fires in encampments. We're pulling people out. We're resuscitating them from overdoses. As you talked about earlier, the Supreme Court actually ruled on this. What's the city going to do about it? Are there any encampments that or what encampments are we clearing exactly? And which one are you avoiding, if any? Thank you.
We're starting with Mr. Farrell.
Thank you. Appreciate that question. And to me, I think it's a shame that homelessness is back again on the rise here in San Francisco. And despite the fact that the Supreme Court decision was handed down 3 weeks ago, we haven't done anything about it. You don't get to have a plan. You should have been in action 3 weeks ago, the day this came down. When I was mayor in 2018, we took out all the large tenant encampments in San Francisco. I'm the only one up here that has a track record of doing that. Again, I believe in treating people with compassion and respect and offering them shelter and housing. But I believe the sidewalks of our city belong to everybody. I was consistent about it. I was strong about it, despite the fact that Coalition on Homelessness is protesting in front of my home with brooms, with my 5-year-old in the front window. I kept doing it because I know that not only are people not getting better by sleeping in tents at night, it overburdens our fire department and our firefighters every single day, and is not what you should be doing. You have my commitment as mayor to be as strong as I was before to make sure there are no tenant encampments left in the city of San Francisco.
Mayor Breed?
Well, just to be clear, again, tenant encampments were 58% higher when Mark Farrell was temporary mayor, and there were at least 7 large encampments still left that I had to clean up. We know that encampments are going down, and thank goodness for this decision. And there's more complicated issues related to it, but we expect to begin implementation on day 1 in early August. We are waiting for clarification with the city attorney's office so that we can train our city employees to address these issues. Just because we can enforce the law around sit, lie, and camping doesn't mean we can ignore the law around bag and tag. Bag and tag is still a part of the equation. And when we go out there and we clear these encampments, what we don't want to do is violate the law, which unfortunately, when our city employees are not trained appropriately, we've had to issue out anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 per person when we don't do our bag and tag policy right. So it's easy to go out there and start waving a broom and sweeping, but we also have to follow the law, and we will see substantive change within the next couple of months.
Supervisor Peskin?
As the working men and women from Station 13, Station 2, Station 28, Station 41, the officers at Central Station know that for the 24 years since I was elected as the supervisor for District 3, the northeast corner of the city, that I have had a zero-tent policy in that corner of the city, and I have given support to captain after captain at Central Station in that regard. And for those of you who work there or visit there, you will know that that is precisely the result that we have had, and that is exactly what I want to bring to the rest of San Francisco when I am mayor.
You're going to hear me on the steps of City Hall every day. We're going to change the culture, and we're going to send a message to the country and to the world that you do not come to San Francisco to deal drugs, to do drugs, or to sleep on our streets. We are going to stand up 1,500 shelter beds in the first 6 months of my administration. We're going to give safe, dignified options for people to go to. We're going to double down on Homeward Bound. We're going to have more mental health and drug treatment beds. And those options must be taken, especially now that Grants Pass has come down. And then we need to enforce the law, because the streets belong to all of us. All of our kids, all of you, you should not be having to do the work that you're doing. And under my leadership, those things will be implemented, and we will clear the tents from our streets.
Supervisor Safai?
Thank you. 100%, we're going to go after all the encampments. But let me just be clear. I think we need to start with some of the ones that are the most dangerous. I had the honor of joining Station 42 on a run, and we went to an encampment that was on Caltrans proper. And if you didn't know anything, you would think you were in a third world country. It was horrendous. I don't need to explain it to the members that are from that station. There was someone there that took wire, that was burning it so they could take the copper and sell it. And that's a daily occurrence. They were stealing the electricity from the building next door. I mean, these are the things that are tinder boxes that could destroy. And it's, by the way, it's 2 blocks from Willie Brown Middle School. So we have to go after the ones that are the most dangerous first and ensure that those are cleared immediately. But here's the thing, folks. We don't even know how many people are on the streets of San Francisco because we only count every 2 years. Under my administration, we would be doing it aggressively, and then we know the right number of shelter beds to build. And of course, if you're doing drugs and you're breaking the law, you can't be there. That's when law enforcement has to step in. That shouldn't be you all.
Thank you. We had the rebuttals that Mayor Breed invoked Mr. Farrell's name, so we'll have a rebuttal.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to point out, this is exactly the pointed difference of leadership styles between this mayor and when I was mayor, when I will be mayor. When I was mayor, we cleared out the large tent encampments, despite the fact that people were protesting in front of my house with brooms. This mayor's taken a cautious approach and let homelessness rise again in San Francisco and let tent encampments grow in San Francisco again. After 6 years, you don't get to have a plan. You have a track record. Grants Pass was come down 3 weeks ago. You should have been ready as a city government. I will be unapologetic and be the strongest leader you can imagine to make sure we clean up the streets of San Francisco for everyday San Francisco residents, for people that work here, for people that visit here, and for the firefighters and the police officers and the sheriffs that protect us every single day in our city. That is my leadership style.
Mayor Breed, do you have a rebuttal?
I get a rebuttal?
Yeah, he's.
Yes. Well, first of all, the facts are the facts. And in the midst of all of the craziness when he was temporary mayor, we had a global pandemic. And we, in fact, unfortunately, had to clear out our shelter beds because they were congregate living spaces. When people talk about saving lives being the North Star, where was he during the pandemic when I had to leave this city and truly save lives? And then who could have anticipated that we would have an explosion of overdose deaths from fentanyl, not just here in San Francisco, but all over the country? And the fact remains, this is not as easy as waving a magic wand and being aggressive. Hell, I've had people protest in front of my home too over the course of the pandemic. But it requires doing work and doing things the right way. There are the firefighters who we, of course, need to protect, but we also have to make sure that we're giving all of our city employees the right tools and the support they need to go out and actually do the job correctly so that we're not doling out from all these lawsuits and wasting even further money. You may say cautious, but I have been effective in doing what I need to do because, again, 58% higher tent encampments when he was temporary mayor. And there were still large encampments that I was cleaning up when he walked away. And he has been nowhere to be found this whole time until he decided to run for mayor.
Okay, no, we can't spend the rest of the day.
All right, Javon Blake, we're gonna move on to the next question.
Good morning, Javon Blake, Truck 3, Tenderloin, 11 years on the job. There's no scripture that reads, there's no greater love than one would lay down his life for his friends. It's an attitude of service and selflessness. That describes every single member in this union, and I think it's worth noting the POA that brought it up earlier. 3 years ago, 24 members of this union were fired because of the city's COVID vaccine mandate policy. And now, for almost 2 years, the mandate has been removed, yet not a single one of those members has been reinstated to their previous jobs. Right now, every single one of those members is eligible to work, has already been vetted, and has already been trained and can fill staffing shortages. This week, I spoke with several of those members. Here's what I learned. After the mandate was lifted, not a single one of them was given their job back. They sent letters to DHR asking to be reinstated, and they got no reply. 3 members chose to start from square one and go through the hiring process, made it all the way to the end of the process, and were not hired back. What is most appalling is that 3 of you standing here today have been in city leadership while this has been going on and have done nothing about this issue. Yet you come here today asking for our endorsement. So here's my question. If Local 798 endorses you for mayor, will you commit to directing the Department of Human Resources and the fire chief to work in coordination to immediately reinstate all of these people? If yes, please explain your plan. If not, please explain why not. But regardless, please do not waste our time by telling us that you're going to look into it. Either commit to doing it or let us know you're not going to do it so we know where you stand very clearly. Thank you.
Great, and I know Giovanni lives in my district. I appreciate all he's done as a resident. So let me just say this, that's actually just the first time I've heard that. I was with a Teamster the other night, someone also that lives in the district that I've known for a long time. And he was someone that was reinstated. He drives a truck cleaning the streets. So the problem is back to leadership, management, and accountability. Despite a lot of misinformation, the mayor is the one that directs departments in our city. The mayor has the control to make this decision today, okay? So as mayor, I would absolutely make that decision because I know we have a shortage in firefighters, nurses, 911, paramedics, EMTs, police officers, every single position in our city that has to do with public safety. So there would be no way that I wouldn't. If we're doing it in one department, we should be doing it across the entire city. 100% clear.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Javon, I'd like to sit down with those folks. Having not been in office, not had the power to do this, we have a shortage. If you all want them reinstated, we should reinstate them. This is how I'm going to lead as mayor. I'm going to work with 798. I'm going to work with leadership, and I'm going to listen to the members to make decisions. It's the difference between me and some other folks. I listen, I'm going to communicate clearly, and if you all want them reinstated, we should reinstate them. Now, many of you took that vaccine against your own wishes, but you did it for your brothers and sisters. So, someone talked to me about whether or not we do back pay. Well, many of you got the vaccine and worked during that crisis. So I don't think I'm ready to go that far on back pay, but I'm ready to sit down and talk to those members. And so I look forward, Javon, I hope you will set up a meeting so I can meet with those folks.
Supervisor Peston.
Thank you, Floyd. First of all, let me just be very clear about the charter of the city and county of San Francisco. Members of the Board of Supervisors may not interfere in personnel matters. It is entirely under the mayor, under the executive. And let me say this, that was a crazy time. I want to really thank and acknowledge all of our first responders who could not shelter in place and be at home, but had to go to work every day. So I thank you for that. And I believe in second chances. I am the living product of second chances. And I think that the city and county should offer all of those folks, not only at fire, but in other departments who were separated during that crazy time, the right to apply for their old jobs back. It makes sense. That time is gone and passed. Let's get back to work.
Mayor Breed.
First of all, I had to make really hard decisions during the pandemic, which I know had an impact on so many members of this station, of this department. And what I'm most proud of is when asked to deal with some of those issues, including cashing out retirement, dealing with the mandatory overtime and reducing the hours so that you could qualify for overtime and including your time off and a number of other things. And when they only wanted to give vaccinations to people in hospitals and dealing with the medical fields, I fought and worked with your union leadership to make sure that you were first in line. And I was grateful for each and every one of you and the service you provided. There are so many reasons that people decided that they wanted to do or not wanted to do vaccinations. And I'm not going to get into the details of that. But I have had a conversation with the chief. And I don't tell the chief how to do her job. She doesn't tell me how to do my job. I have asked the chief specifically in every single instance, chief, whether it's anybody that she's hiring, is it possible for you to reconsider seriously the rehiring and other issues around the department based on those who have refused vaccinations now that the vaccination mandate is lifted. And I think that it's more appropriate for her to have that conversation with all of you, but it is ultimately her decision, and I am not going to interfere in that decision.
Mr. Farrell.
I don't know about you, I'm sick and tired of excuses. We just need results. 100% will reinstate it right away. Let me tell you why. I've been fortunate enough to be invited to over a dozen different firehouses over the course of the last few months and sat down to listen to what's going on. From the DPW tax on your roll doors, to the food, to everything, to your rigs and your engines. But to this specific issue has come up every single firehouse. And every single person is so incredibly frustrated, every single firefighter, that their brothers and sisters can't get rehired. Experienced officers that can add value to our fire department. You have my commitment 100%, unequivocally so.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up. I hope you've enjoyed the debate, and we're going to have votes. I'm not a big fan of ranked choice voting. I always like the playoffs and then the final, but that's not the way it is. So my final question to the group, starting with Supervisor Ashaw and moving his way down.
Going first all the time.
Oh,
That's fine. Go ahead.
thought you wanted.
I'm ready.
All right, under ranked choice voting, who would be your second pick?
I got this question before. The two people that I've worked with that I think have the most experience, that have shown their ability to bring people together, is Mark Farrell and Aaron Peskin.
Sure.
And I was asked this question before, and I'll repeat my answer. It's this man to my right. And specifically because of our working relationship, because he is a family man here in San Francisco, and because of his union background, fighting for the men and women here in San Francisco every single day. Sasha.
Mayor Breed?
First of all, I will just say who it won't be, and it won't be Mark Farrell, but it potentially could be some of the other folks who are here today, and I'm still making the decision.
I'll just say, I'll take that as a badge of honor, by the way.
And I'll take that as a rebuttal. Okay. Vice Peskin?
The business of politics is working and collaborating to actually get things done, which is precisely what I have done for 25 years, elected 5 times, president of the board 3 times. And I have worked with Supervisor Safai on legislation like banning PFAS, on legislation like the pension package that is going to the November ballot. And I've worked with Mayor Breed in her capacity as a member of the board and as mayor to convert downtown vacant office buildings to residential. So I like to work with people that want to work to get things done. So as I said in a previous debate, Supervisor Safai and Mayor Breed.
Mr. Lord?
Haven't made my decision. The City Hall insiders that I'm standing up to, they have not gotten the job done. And I'm gonna have to sit down and talk with them. I will. But right now, I'm focused on earning your support, earning your endorsement, making sure I go out and listen to community. And I appreciate the question, but I'm just not ready to pick a number 2.
Good. Okay, final remarks. We're going to start with Mr. Farrell, former acting mayor, and then it's going to be Supervisor Safai. Sorry, you didn't make the first one that time. And over to Mr. Lurie and Peskin.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It was an honor to work with the fire department and 798 when I was in office before, and would be an honor to work together next year as your mayor. I'm just going to leave you with this. I'm lucky enough to be a born and raised San Franciscan. And what that means, among other things, is that so many of my childhood friends are members of our fire department, members of our police department, members of our sheriff's department. I actually had 5 members of my high school class, at least one of them I know is here today, in our fire department. And so for me, when I talk about issues related to firefighters and all first responders, this isn't political. This is personal to me. These are people that I grew up with. I grew up in a military family. I honor your service and your commitment to our city. You have my commitment to fight for you and have your back every single day inside of City Hall And you also have my commitment to change the tune out of City Hall, to change the direction of our city, and bring San Francisco back so we are all proud once again to call San Francisco home. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. As your mayor, I'll never make excuses. I promise accountability and bold leadership. I'll listen and I'll be a strong voice for you as I have been for the past 8 years. Of all the candidates on this stage, I have the most diverse set of experience that I bring to this job. I've been advocating for working families for the past 24 years, every single day of my career. I worked for 2 mayors, Mayor Willie Brown and Gavin Newsom. I've been a deputy department head. I worked for Public Works. I've run my own small business. And I've worked for organized labor for almost a decade with the Janitors Union. I served on the Board of Supervisors, as you know, for the past 8 years. And I've been the president of the retirement fund, which I know you all care deeply about, as do I. This is not an entry-level job. This is a job you need to be ready for day one, given the crisis of our city. And I will fight like hell to build a safe, affordable, thriving city so that teachers, nurses, janitors, paramedics, firefighters, and EMTs, all of our working families can live and thrive in this city and call it home. I want to be a mayor for all San Franciscans, and I humbly ask for your endorsement today.
Thank you.
I have the closing statement written down. I've done it before. But I want to tell you, when I was 24 years old, it was September 11th, 2001, and I was a block from the World Trade Center. I kept going to work. Second plane buzzed by the building that I was in, and we got out. And my team, the staff at Robin Hood, where I was working at the time, it's my 4th day of work. We started walking uptown. Your brothers, your sisters, they were going back downtown. I will never forget that moment, that day. What you all do and what you commit to, it's unbelievable. It's not something that I can put my feet in your shoes. We need to do better by you. All of them up here, I appreciate their efforts, but it's not been enough. I am committed to having your back every single day because I know when that moment comes, you are going to answer the call. So thank you for your service. And I hope to have your vote this November.
Supervisor Fesky.
Thank you to each and every one of you and the other members of Local 798 for the work that you do day in and day out and for putting your lives on the line. You've had my back in many elections, and I thank you for your endorsement and support as District 3 Supervisor. Younger members may not remember that I have had your back too, leading the successful effort to make your holiday pay pensionable, equivalent to a 6.5% increase, fighting for Proposition F and ending the brownouts in 2005. But most importantly, when wealthy political forces in this city attacked the pensions that you earned in 2010, when I was the chair of the San Francisco Democratic Party, when your dependent health care was going to be doubled in premium costs, I joined with Local 798 to lead the effort to stop those attacks that were funded by Michael Moritz, the same individual who is running Together SF that is supporting Mark Farrell's campaign. Please remember that. I am the detail guy who can bring people together to solve San Francisco's problems and reform our system. I would be honored to have Local 798's endorsement in this mayor's contest. Thank you.
I want to reiterate that despite all the pie in the sky promises you've heard from my opponents today, I have been the only candidate consistently there for firefighters. As a Fire commissioner, I've been with you. As supervisor, I was with you. I was the only one who stood up during the ambulance crises, and I took on the chief. I even took on the mayor at that time, and that wasn't easy. The others on this stage, let's face it, were nowhere to be found. As mayor, I have been there for you. I have delivered for neighborhood fire stations. We have hired more than 640 firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs. Your pay is now 30% higher than the Bay Area average, and I have consistently protected the 48.7-hour work week. So let's be real today. Have I knocked heads with Local 798 from time to time? Of course. That's the reality of being mayor and not just the candidate. I know you guys have been around a long time. You know that candidates promise you the moon. But I hope today you dig deep into your hearts and you know that I'm the only candidate with a real track record of delivering for this department every single day, because I know how much you do and how hard you work to deliver for the people of San Francisco. And I would be honored to have your support.